Gaat spreken is Alexander Markovic, een Russisch journalist, en we gaan van Islam beschouwd wordt en wat het Russische point of view is. Alexander?
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity for me to speak with you and try to tell several words about the position of Russian civil society. Because I'm not representative of Russian government. I'm a journalist, and last year I was in the top 15 of the most voted journalists in Russia. I am a member of so-called People's Parliament in our country, not official parliament, People's Parliament. It's called the Civic Chamber of Russian Federation. A lot of opinion makers and leaders of civil society organizations. So we work all together in this Civic Chamber, and I'm the head of the Commission of Mass Media in it. And I am one of the founders of a non-government organization, the Foundation for National Values Protection. So, our opinion and opinion of civil society of Russia. I will try to show you several slides and several points of view. So we think that truth has always been and will be the first victim of any war. And since the beginning of military conflict on Donbass, the Western media began to a real information war against Russia. And of course, during all wars, media needs a lot of victims, and through the efforts of European and American journalists, the Kremlin has turned into a gloomy citadel of world evil. And so they were in big need of new victims, and so it was the crash of a Malaysian Boeing in the sky over Ukraine, and this tragedy became the foundation for one of the most striking symbols through which Western propaganda constructs the image of Russia as a new evil empire. However, as new information about the incident arrives in the public space, experts have more and more questions for the version of the incident replicated by the Western media. During the last 5.5 years, the story of the Malaysian Boeing has created a lot of rumors and gossips. Any person who wants to know the truth is doomed to fail. I think that you know that modern so-called news feed, smart feeds in social network is built in such a way that you are imposed with knowledge that you don't need. We can easily set up an experiment. Let's try typing in the search bar what happened to the Malaysian Boeing, and within 95% we will find out that Russia is to blame. Why? Because it was decided by the powers that be. At the same time, there are still a huge number of questions, and these questions are raised by independent journalists, bloggers, experts all over the world. But they are not heard, and many are completely silenced, not allowing them to speak on any platforms. For many years, I heard some gossips about so-called cruel censorship in Russian media. But I think that everybody knows that real censorship is on the so-called new media platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and so on. And we know hundreds, thousands of people, civil society activists, journalists, and many other people who are temporarily banned on Twitter. They can't post their thoughts on the platform of Facebook because moderators of Twitter, moderators of Facebook decides what is true and what is false information, what is disinformation, and I was also banned on Twitter for my publications. and posts. As I told you, our organization, the Foundation for National Values Protection, is one of the leading think tanks, so-called think tanks of Russian Federation, and we are engaged in studying the information war between our country. I know that German journalist Billy Six are among us, and he will has his speech later. And several days ago he was in Moscow, and we organized a really interesting press conference, and we were asking our questions again and again. For example, where is the data from Ukrainian radars? This question was asked at the highest level for many times, and the strange answer is there is no data. There is no data from this day from Ukrainian radars at all. Then someone said that these radars accidentally turned off. All the radars in Ukraine that were scanning this part of the airspace turned off at the same exact moment. Very strange situation, and nobody can answer us, can give us answer for this question. And in response to Russia's willingness to cooperate in the investigation of the crash of this plane, the West demands our country to plead guilty. And Western media and Western officials always say that the only way for Russia to cooperate is to plead our country guilty. That's all. In the January of this year, during his large press conference, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov could not restrain his emotions. He was speaking about his talks and his negotiations with his colleague from the Netherlands. And your minister told Minister Lavrov that Russia did not cooperate with the investigation. Russia is not cooperating because Russia has not admitted its guilt. So I was on this press conference on Lavrov. He showed very huge emotions. It was so, because you understand, so the only way for Russia to cooperate is this one. Yes. Yesterday in Hague we were on the presentation of this very interesting and very powerful documentary made by Yana Yerlashova and Max van der Werf, and I want to say a big thank you to Max and Yana for discovering those documents about book. And so this is another big question from Russian journalists, from Russian society. So, for example, if your secret service of your country tells us that there were no books in the area of the plane, so this is the question. Another question. The first is about disappearing of data from radars. Another question is, and these documents were created in the 2016, so for 3 years and a half, they were hired from society, from media. So why? And of course, for us, it appears that honest and unbiased investigation will not only drop all the charges against Moscow, but will put Ukraine, and most importantly, the Western countries, before serious questions, and we're waiting for it. And the second thing is also very interesting for us, and I want to say thank you for one of the Dutch newspapers, it published it that in February, just several weeks before the start of the trial, all 6 employees of the prosecutor's office in Ukraine were fired. All 6 people working in the Ukrainian prosecutor's office were fired. They were thrown away from their office because of the corruption, of course. But why they decided to do it just before the trial? Now only one of them will participate in the process as a private person. Of course, speaking again about the thoughts and attitudes of the Russian society, I want to say that, of course, the decision on this trial is not difficult to predict for us. I am sure that this verdict will be issued on the basis of evidence received from audio and video materials of unknown origin. For example, based on the audio materials from Ukrainian secret services, posts in social networks, of course, and as well as testimonies of unknown witnesses. So thus, this verdict will convict those who were called guilty an hour after the tragedy. How can this be called an investigation? Russia was one of the authors of a resolution adopted by the United Nations Security Council. This document contained requirements to ensure the safety of the investigation in strict accordance with the standards of the International Civil Aviation Organization. The resolution, among other things, demanded that those involved in the investigation regularly report to the United Nations Security Council. There was not a single report. No. After the plane crash, an investigation team was formed, which included, Ukraine, Australia, Netherlands, Belgium. And another question from Russian society was why Malaysia, whose Boeing in fact was downed, was not invited there. No Russia, no Malaysia. Yes, of course, Malaysia was invited after 6 months, and then not to participate in the criminal investigation group, but only to participate in the group to clarify the technical aspects of the disaster. Another thing, and another question is about the colonel from the Malaysian Minister of Defense, Mr. Hussein, and he was in Donbass, he was receiving black boxes, and now he has a special paper from the general prosecutor of the Malaysian country, and he has no right to speak, he has no right to speak with media, to speak publicly, officially. Why? Another question. And in conclusion, I will say, when they approach the topic, or we can remember the Skripal case, or whoever used so-called chemical weapons in Syria, we can speak only about so-called highly likely logic of the Western media. And this is the same story. When the West invents rules instead of international laws against Russia, which are convenient for them and in which everyone is forced to believe in. And so, at the end of my speech, I would like to mention that yesterday and today, my fellow colleagues, journalists, even in Germany, in the Netherlands, they asked me a lot about Russia's position, of course. I am not a government official, I'm a journalist and public figure, and I will tell you the position of our civil society. It is simple. There is an information war against our country because of our independent policy, because of our position in different international situations. And this big information war started at least about 6 years ago. Of course, during the Crimea conflict and the whole situation with the civil war in Ukraine. And so the Boeing disaster is one of the chapters of this yet to be written book about this war. I think it's time to write this book, and we'll do it. And on the 6th anniversary of the plane's crash, I think that we will present this report. It will contain 6 large chapters about the 6 most significant information provocations that were carried out against my country for these past 6 years. 6 years, 6 dirty productions, 6 chapters. Skripal case, Boeing, and a lot of other things. Of course, the so-called doping hysteria about Russian sportsmen, because we know that, of course, a lot of sportsmen in Scandinavia, for example, they are all very ill people. They are asthmatics, they are in need of a lot of medicine, and only Russians take doping, and so on and so on. So we'll present this report in Moscow, in Berlin, in Amsterdam, wherever people will be ready to listen to us and hear us. Thank you very much.
In de andere krant vindt u ook een bijdrage van Alexander Markovic, waarin dit verhaal in iets andere woorden ook nog wordt toegelicht. Als laatste spreker vandaag hebben we een Duitse onderzoeker, Willy Six. Die was ter plaatse in Oekraïne om de Maidan-revolutie te verslaan. Want we toen nog dachten dat het een revolutie was. En nadat Willy Six hoorde dat de ramp zich voltrokken had, nadat hij het officiële narratief hoorde zoals het in Kiev werd gedeeld, besloot hij om zelf onderzoek te gaan doen. En we krijgen nu een verslag van wat het onderzoek heeft opgeleverd. Willy Six.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for attending today. Special thanks to the ladies, of course. There is nothing to celebrate today. Just from tomorrow we will face another step, another chapter of information warfare. Just for the beginning, I would like to know, hands up please, who understands English? Seems to be everyone. German? Okay, so I will translate simultaneously later on. Yes, I was in Kiev on 17th of July 2014. I saw the very sad people from the Dutch embassy, and I went to the Ukraine crisis center, receiving information from Ukraine officials, SBU, army, and so on and so on. And of course, the news of so-called American satellite images. So, based on those informations, as journalists from Germany who wrote for German newspapers, those were the